DoubleZero, Nihar Shah. This is video 4, take 6. Healthy networks need integrity. Healthy networks need security. But these are classic public good problems, where there is a diffuse set of beneficiaries and a very concentrated set of costs. And so the DoubleZero protocol needs to do something to ensure that security and integrity are provided. That is where two concepts, inflation and burning, come in. They are often treated as polar opposites, but from our perspective, they both power the common good of security needed for the project to survive. They set the right incentives, they enact the necessary redistribution, and more generally, they are two very useful tools to ensure that DoubleZero network has the right security in place to be able to deliver value to its end users. Let's start with inflation. Inflation funds the actions that need to be taken to maintain the overhead of the network. Every epoch, the integrity of the links on the DoubleZero network need to be verified. Every epoch, the allocation of rewards to different network contributors needs to be calculated. Every epoch, we need to maintain a topology of the network and the users atop it. And so inflation is the mechanism that funds the resource providers and the underlying delegated stakers that stake tokens to them in exchange for doing that critical work. Now, of course, there's the age-old question. How much should inflation pay to compensate resource providers and their underlying delegated stakers? And at the DoubleZero project, we always prefer a market-based solution. And so the formula looks something like this. There are two key terms in this equation. The first one is this far term of the total amount of rewards flowing to network contributors. And the second is the demand to do this underlying work, which is 1 minus the square root of the staking percentage. And you can see that the inflation rate just sets a nice market equilibrium between these two factors. And so in words, if there's a lot of value being secured by the network, the inflation rate should be higher to compensate for the fact that all of this value is flowing through. When there's a lot of demand to doing this underlying work, represented by the stake percentage being high, then the inflation rate nudges lower. And so the inflation rate finds a nice balance to balance these two core factors. There are a few additional bells and whistles, like cumulative inflation being bounded by cumulative burning asymptotically, but those can be explored more on the website, and this is really the core formulation that drives inflation in each epoch to resource providers. Now let's move to burning. If inflation incentivizes actors to take positive actions in favor of the network, burning is what disincentivizes bad actors from attacking the network and taking negative actions. And there are two core attacks that we worry about. First, a network contributor might be tempted to send inorganic traffic over the lines that they control in order to make it seem like these lines are very useful and that they should earn an outsized share of the rewards. Imagine in an extreme scenario, a network contributor sends a lot of inorganic traffic over lines between Greenland and Iceland in order to boost their share of the rewards. Second, there are relatively few network contributors compared to users in the DoubleZero network, because there are relatively few entities that can muster the capital and the expertise needed to actually provide the underlying links needed for the network. And so, without further checks, there's always the risk that these small group of users become somewhat oligopolistic and ends up having too much of the token supply and can therefore control the network in unfavorable ways going forward. And so to combat this, we also have burning at the same time, where we burn for these two separate reasons and then combine them to set an official burn rate. To draw this out graphically, if this is time and this is the burn rate, the integrity-based burn rate that ensures that contributors are not sending inorganic traffic over their lines looks like this jumpy term that could be computed in any particular epoch based on the network topology. The second of those, the community-based burn rate, which ensures that network contributors are not amassing too much power, is a smoother function as a function of time. And then finally, the third component is the actual burn rate, which is simply set at the maximum of these two values. And so there you have it. We start with 10 billion tokens, but we both inflate and burn in order to keep the protocol secure. Again, these two concepts might look like polar opposites on crypto Twitter, but we at the DoubleZero project just see them as the same thing, something that's needed to secure the underlying network.